The silence before dawn was not peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that comes when predators pause, when even the wind holds its breath, sensing something terrible approaching. 7.5 million years ago, this wasn't just another morning. It was the last morning for countless families who had no idea their world was about to end. Imagine waking up in a time when giants walked the earth, when survival meant more than finding food. It meant avoiding becoming food. The Miocene epoch was closing, and with it, an entire way of life that had dominated our planet for millions of years. But what could possibly bring down creatures that had survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and countless smaller extinctions? The answer lies buried in layers of rock that scientists are only now beginning to understand. Picture vast grasslands stretching beyond the horizon, dotted with forests that housed creatures so massive they would dwarf today's elephants. This was Earth's theater of giants, a world where 15-foot-tall ground sloths moved like living mountains, where saber-toothed cats with fangs longer than daggers ruled the hunt, and where early human ancestors lived in constant terror of what lurked beyond their small fires. But even titans can fall. The fossil record shows us something chilling, a sudden catastrophic shift that happened so quickly most species had no time to adapt. What force could be so devastating that it would rewrite the very blueprint of life on Earth? The climate was changing, but not in the gradual way we might expect. Ocean currents that had remained stable for millions of years suddenly shifted, turning tropical paradises into frozen wastelands within decades. The Messinian salinity crisis was beginning, an event so extreme that the entire Mediterranean Sea would eventually dry up, leaving behind a salt desert deeper than the Grand Canyon. Consider the terror of creatures who had never known true cold, suddenly facing temperatures that plummeted 50 degrees in a single generation. Imagine massive herds of giant horses, their breath visible in air that had never been cold before, searching desperately for vegetation that was dying faster than they could migrate. Yet the dropping temperatures were merely the opening act of this prehistoric apocalypse. The real killer was something far more insidious, something that attacked the very foundation of the food chain. As ice caps expanded, sea levels dropped by over 400 feet, exposing vast continental shelves and completely altering the geography these ancient families had known for countless generations. But here's what makes this extinction event truly terrifying. It wasn't random. Scientists have discovered evidence of a pattern, a systematic collapse that suggests this wasn't just bad luck. It was inevitable. The same geological processes that had created this world of giants also contained the seeds of its destruction. The grasslands that supported massive herbivores began disappearing as rainfall patterns shifted dramatically. Forests fragmented into isolated islands of green, surrounded by expanding deserts. The great rivers that had carved valleys and supported entire ecosystems started drying up, leaving behind only memories written in stone. What haunts researchers is the speed of this collapse. Fossil evidence suggests that some species went from abundant to extinct in less than 100,000 years, the blink of an eye in geological terms. For the creatures living through it, each generation faced challenges their parents never encountered, adaptations that took millions of years to develop, becoming useless overnight. The predator-prey relationships that had remained stable for eons suddenly became death sentences. Giant ground sloths, built for a world of plenty, found themselves competing for resources with smaller, more adaptable species. The great cats that had perfected the art of hunting massive prey discovered their targets were disappearing, forcing them to compete with each other in increasingly desperate battles for survival. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of this ancient catastrophe is what it reveals about survival itself. Size, strength, and dominance, the very traits that had made these creatures lords of their world, became liabilities. The meek didn't just inherit the Earth, they were the only ones flexible enough to survive its transformation. Recent discoveries in South America have revealed something that challenges everything we thought we knew about this extinction event. Paleontologists have found fossil sites where multiple species seem to gather together in their final moments, suggesting these ancient families may have possessed an intelligence we never suspected, a desperate wisdom that recognized safety in numbers, even as their world crumbled around them. If creatures that ruled the Earth for millions of years could vanish so completely that we only know them through fragments of bone, what does that say about our own permanence? The same forces that reshaped their world are still active today, still waiting in the depths of geological time. The story of what happened next, how some survived while others perished, and what lessons their struggle holds for us, remains hidden in the next chapter of this forbidden history. If these ancient secrets call to you as they call to us, stay with us as we uncover the darkest truths buried in stone and time. The survivors emerged into a world that no longer recognized them. Those who had hidden in caves, burrowed underground, or adapted to eating anything they could find, discovered that survival was only the first test. The real challenge was rebuilding civilization from the ashes of giants. What they found defies everything we thought we knew about prehistoric intelligence. Recent excavations in the Rift Valley have uncovered evidence that our earliest ancestors didn't just survive this catastrophe. They learned from it, developed strategies so sophisticated that they challenge our assumptions about primitive minds. Picture families huddled in caves that still echo with their whispered plans, scratching symbols into walls that scientists are only now beginning to decode. These weren't random marks. They were maps, warnings, records of safe migration routes discovered through trial and deadly error. The survivors had become the first chroniclers of apocalypse. But they weren't alone in developing intelligence. The extinction had created evolutionary pressure so intense that multiple species began exhibiting behaviors never seen before. Tool use appeared simultaneously across different continents, as if the Earth itself was teaching its children new ways to survive. Yet here's what makes their story truly haunting. The survivors knew they were living on borrowed time. Carbon dating of bone tools suggests these early humans were preparing for another catastrophe, stockpiling resources and knowledge as if they understood that what had happened once could happen again. The climate stabilization that followed wasn't the peaceful recovery we might imagine. It was a violent reshuffling of power, where every ecological niche left empty by the giants became a battlefield for the remaining species. The meek had inherited the Earth, but they would have to fight to keep it. Archaeological evidence shows that early human settlements from this period were built like fortresses, with multiple escape routes and hidden food caches. These weren't villages. They were survival bunkers designed by minds that had witnessed the impossible and refused to be caught unprepared again. What drives scientists to obsession is the sophistication of these preparations. Genetic analysis of ancient seeds found in these settlements reveals that our ancestors were practicing selective breeding, deliberately cultivating hardier plants that could survive climate extremes. They were becoming architects of their own evolution. But the most chilling discovery came from deep ice cores in Antarctica. Trapped in layers of ice from this exact period, researchers found atmospheric particles that don't match any known natural phenomenon. The chemical signature suggests these early survivors may have witnessed something we can't yet explain, an event so extreme it left traces in the planet's very breath. The predators that survived alongside humans had also changed. Fossil remains show rapid evolutionary adaptations, smaller body sizes for efficiency, enhanced pack-hunting behaviors, and brain development that occurred at unprecedented speed. The extinction had accelerated evolution itself, forcing intelligence to emerge as the ultimate survival tool. Consider the terror and wonder of living through such rapid change. Within just a few generations, the fundamental rules of existence had been rewritten. What had once been the domain of giants became a world where cunning mattered more than strength, where memory could mean the difference between life and death. The cave paintings from this era tell stories we're still learning to read. They depict not just the animals these survivors hunted, but warning symbols, markers that seem to indicate dangerous areas, times to avoid certain regions, or behaviors that led to death. These weren't just art, they were survival manuals written in pigment and desperation. But perhaps the most disturbing evidence comes from burial sites. The pattern of bones suggests these early humans developed complex grief rituals, mourning practices that indicate they understood loss on a scale we can barely comprehend. They were burying not just individuals, but entire ways of life. The extinction's psychological impact may have been as significant as its biological effects. Evidence suggests that trauma responses, behaviors we associate with modern PTSD, first appeared in the archaeological record during this period. The survivors carried scars that ran deeper than bone, memories that shaped how they would forever view their place in the world. Recent DNA analysis has revealed something even more startling. The genetic bottlenecks that occurred during this extinction created mutations that persist in modern humans today. Adaptations that make us uniquely suited for surviving catastrophe. We are, quite literally, the children of apocalypse survivors. Yet the most haunting question remains unanswered. What did they see in the sky? Multiple cave paintings from different continents show similar celestial phenomena, objects or events that our current understanding of astronomy can't explain. The survivors were trying to warn us about something that transcends ordinary extinction events. The final pieces of evidence paint a picture of desperate intelligence racing against time. Tool complexity increased exponentially in the centuries following the initial catastrophe, as if these survivors knew they had a narrow window to develop the knowledge needed for long-term survival. Modern climate scientists studying this ancient extinction have identified patterns that mirror current global changes. The same atmospheric shifts, ocean current disruptions, and ecosystem collapses that drove those giants to extinction are beginning to appear in our own data. The survivors' warnings, etched in stone and bone, may have been intended for us. Their greatest lesson wasn't about surviving catastrophe, it was about recognizing the signs before it's too late. The question that haunts every paleontologist who studies this period isn't what killed the giants, but whether we're wise enough to heed the warnings left by those who watched their world end. If you seek the truth about what these ancient witnesses saw and what their warnings mean for our future, follow us into the depths of forbidden history where science meets prophecy.